You go to send money and your bank offers you two options: a bank transfer or a wire transfer. One of them is free, the other one wants $30, and nobody at the bank ever explains what that $30 is actually buying you. Last year, Americans pushed $93 trillion through the free option alone, and people lost more than $3 billion using the expensive one, mostly because they did not understand one specific difference between them. So here is the answer right away. In the United States, a bank transfer almost always means an ACH transfer. Your payment gets bundled into a batch with thousands of others, sent through a clearinghouse, and settled in 1 to 3 business days. It is cheap or free. And if something goes wrong, there are ways to pull it back. A wire transfer is the opposite. Your payment travels on its own as a single message between two banks. It settles the same day. It costs around $30. And once it lands, it is effectively gone forever. Cheap and correctable, or fast and final, that is the trade. That is the short version. But the reason one of them is final and the other one is not has almost nothing to do with technology. It traces back to a telegraph line the Federal Reserve leased in 1918 and to a line in American law that quietly left wire transfers outside of consumer protection. Once you see that, the $30 fee stops looking like a speed charge. I will also show you which one criminals ask for by name and exactly why. By the end, you will know which button to press and the one situation where pressing the wrong one can cost you every dollar you sent. Start with the word itself. A wire transfer is called a wire because it genuinely used to travel on a wire. In 1918, the Federal Reserve leased its own dedicated telegraph network, linking the 12 reserve banks, the board in Washington, and the Treasury. Payments were tapped out in Morse code. Banks settled gold balances by message instead of shipping metal across the country in armored rail cars. That telegraph system is the direct ancestor of Fedwire, the network your domestic wire still runs on today. And the thing it was built for was finality. A telegraph message could not be unsent, so the system was designed around one assumption. Once the receiving bank has been told the money is theirs, the matter is closed. Look closer and you can see that 100-year-old assumption still sitting inside your banking app. Axe came from the opposite problem, and it arrived much later. By the late 1960s, American banks were drowning in paper checks. In August 1970, 10 California banks formed a committee with a wonderfully unglamorous name, the Special Committee on Paperless Entries. In October 1972, the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco switched on the first automated clearinghouse. It was not built for speed, it was built for volume and for cost. That difference in purpose is why the two systems still behave so differently more than 50 years later. One was designed to be final, the other was designed to be cheap and correctable. Now here is what actually happens when you press send. On a bank transfer, your bank does not contact the other bank at all. It writes your payment into a file, alongside every other payment it is sending that day. That file goes to an operator, usually the Federal Reserve or the clearinghouse. It gets sorted and delivered to receiving banks in batches, at fixed times. Nothing about it is real time. That is why money can leave your account on Monday and land on Wednesday. On a wire, your bank sends a single instruction for your payment only, straight into Fedwire. The Federal Reserve then moves the funds between the two banks' reserve accounts immediately. No batch, no queue of other customers ahead of you. So that is what the fee buys. Not speed exactly, certainty today. But there is a catch, and it catches people constantly. A wire is only same day if you make the cutoff. The Federal Reserve enforces a hard cut for third-party payments at about 6:45 in the evening Eastern Time, and your own bank's deadline is usually hours earlier. Send at 4 in the afternoon on the West Coast, and your same-day wire quietly becomes a next morning wire. Fedwire also does not run on weekends. So a Friday evening wire and a Friday evening bank transfer can land at the exact same moment on Monday, except one of them cost you $30. Speaking of which, the sticker price is never the whole bill. A domestic outgoing wire from a US bank typically runs $25 to $35, and receiving one often costs about $15. International is where it gets ugly. The headline fee is usually $35 to $50, but the fee is rarely the biggest cost. The exchange rate your bank uses is commonly 1 to 3% worse than the real mid-market rate, and that markup is invisible because it is baked into the number they quote you. On top of that, correspondent banks along the route can each deduct a handling charge of $15 to $50 from the money while it is in transit. Add it up and a typical international wire from a major US bank can cost $70 to $115 in total. The person on the other end receives less than you expected, with no line explaining where it went. A bank transfer, by comparison, costs a consumer nothing at almost every US bank and costs a business a few cents. That gap is not a fee difference, it is a difference in what is being sold. Now the part that actually matters, reversibility. An ACH transfer lives inside a rulebook that assumes mistakes happen. If a payment was a duplicate or the wrong amount or genuinely unauthorized, there are defined windows to reverse it, usually within a handful of banking days, and for consumers there is a stronger backstop. Under Regulation EE, you generally have 60 days from your statement to dispute an unauthorized electronic transfer, and your bank has to investigate. A wire does not live under those rules at all. Wires are governed by Article 4A of the Uniform Commercial Code, and American consumer transfer law explicitly excludes transfers covered by that article. The reasoning, back when the law was written, was that wires were a commercial instrument used by businesses, not something ordinary people touched. That assumption is decades out of date, and it has never really been fixed. Here is what that means in practice. Once your wire settles and the receiving bank credits the account, your own bank cannot claw it back. It can send a polite recall request to the other bank and hope. That is genuinely the whole mechanism. If the money has already been withdrawn, it is gone. That is the catch nobody mentions at the counter. Which brings us to why criminals love that word. The FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center logged just over 1 million complaints in 2025, with reported losses of nearly $21 billion. That is up 26% in a single year. Business email compromise was the second largest category by money lost at just over $3 billion. That is the scam where someone impersonates a supplier, an executive, or a title company and sends you updated payment instructions. The average reported loss per complaint is over $122,000. And about 86% of that stolen money moved by wire or ACH. They ask for a wire for one reason: it is the fastest legal way to make money unrecoverable. Here is why that matters to you. If you are ever wiring a large sum, especially for a house closing, phone the recipient on a number you already had, never a number from the email, and read the account details back out loud. That single phone call is the only real protection the system offers you, because the law will not be stepping in afterwards. Now it gets interesting, because the tidy old split is breaking down. Same-day ACH is real and growing fast. In 2025, it carried 1.4 billion payments worth $3.9 trillion. And in the first quarter of 2026 alone, the volume jumped almost 24% against the year before. There are also two genuine real-time rails in the United States now, called RTP and FedNow, and both raised their per-payment ceiling from $1 million to $10 million within the last year. So the speed argument for wires gets weaker every year. The finality argument does not. That part will not change because it is legal, not technical. So which button do you press? Use a bank transfer for anything ordinary or repeating. Payroll, rent to a landlord you know, moving money between your own accounts, paying a bill. It is free, and if it goes wrong, you have a route back. Use a wire when the money genuinely has to be confirmed as final that day, and the recipient requires it. House closings, business purchases, some international payments. And stay aware that this is exactly the situation where you have the least protection, so the verification step matters most precisely where the stakes are highest. One quick note if you bank outside the United States. In the UK and much of Europe, a bank transfer usually means a near instant payment between accounts that cost nothing. It has the speed of an American wire and the price of an American ACH. That is why this comparison confuses so many people online. The words are the same, the plumbing underneath them is not. So the short answer holds up. A bank transfer is cheap, batched, slower and correctable. A wire transfer is immediate, expensive and final. The fee is not really buying speed, it is buying finality, and finality cuts in both directions. Now I am curious about one thing. Has your bank ever charged you for a wire that showed up slower than a free transfer would have? Tell me what happened in the comments, because that combination is far more common than it should be.